we have much to do to fully achieve and to assure the rights set forth in this declaration.
Rooted in the past, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was launched into the future.
As we here bring to fruition our labors on this Declaration of Human Rights, we must at the same time rededicate ourselves to the unfinished task which lies before us.
Hi, my name is Katarina. Nice to meet you.
Today, the United Nations Human Rights Council tasks a small group of experts who conduct country visits worldwide to investigate and report on a wide range of human rights violations.
How long have you stayed here?
The global reach of these experts has grown in response to the world's awareness of injustice.
I was a young lawyer in Argentina during the military dictatorship. I was one of more than 125 or so lawyers who were arrested because of the defense of political prisoners. During interrogation, I was subjected to electricity and other forms of torture. And then I spent a year and a half in prison as a political prisoner. For years, the United Nations had a procedure that was strictly confidential. They only covered the violations in South Africa, in Israel, and in Chile, and no other country was ever considered. But it was the situation in Argentina that broke through. In fact, the first of the special procedures, as they are now called, is the Working Group on Disappearances.
More than 45 years later, UN Special Procedures continues to investigate forced disappearances worldwide.
Este es el piso de esa planta y ahí no sé si puedo apreciar estas siluetas en negro donde se ven los picos de la marca de una pala.
The fact that they are independent experts, they are not on the payroll of the UN, they do not represent the UN, and they are appointed by the states of the Human Rights Council. I would say that most states are actually quite welcoming of special procedures. My contribution is mostly at advising governments, putting good practices, lessons learned from other countries on the table for them to get inspiration. In some cases, special rapporteurs are seen as a threat. They should not be.
Myanmar is really in a transforming process, moving away from 5 decades of military rule.
UN Special Procedures conducts country visits by government invitation, yet threats against its human rights experts persist.
A very famous Buddhist extremist monk who has a very large gathering, a very large following. He has called me names, very, very personal, gender-based violence. And 3 months ago he said, "Patriots, let's find ways and means to teach this beastly woman a lesson."
Because if you're not bold, if you're not courageous, you can't even do this work.
And some were beaten up for just no reason, and they
I don't even think about that. I just go to do my work. Yes, there are times they advise you don't go here because it's not safe. Sometimes we do listen, sometimes we go on our own. So far, we've survived all of that, and I'm grateful to God.
Then the nice thing when you go on these missions and you meet these people is how they fight and how they believe that they will get a better life. For me, my missions are about faces, and it's the faces that guide me when I'm preparing recommendations, etc. It's about the people. What is this all about? What is human rights about? It's about the people.
Each time you have a visit, you meet with very high-ranking ministers, sometimes presidents or even prime ministers. It's very agile in the sense that you are an individual operating in circumstances that you deem to be the best, so you're not fettered by any bureaucracy.
Et donc je me trouve parfaitement dans mon élément, dans ce travail d'expert indépendant qui pour moi est intéressant parce qu'il donne l'indépendance et la crédibilité, mais aussi demande beaucoup de responsabilité et d'objectivité.
And cultural rights, at the end of the day, to me, is really about human creativity. As the first mandate holder by the UN in this area, to try and explore what all this means. And so I have had the possibility, which has been absolutely crucial for me, to bring together experts from regional diversity, but also from different angles to that same issue.
Right.
And also that they're activists as well as academics.
Working independently, these experts communicate unbiased, actionable information that can inspire change.
Before the Arab Spring, Tunisia was the first country to set out on a path of democratization. And the discussions about the Tunisian constitution included a wish to remove women's right to equality from the constitution. We communicated with the Tunisian government at that time. Our communication was accepted. The drafting of the constitution included women's right to equality as a basic right.
And civil society runs away with the reports and the recommendations, and they work out how to implement them. They put pressure on governments, they lobby, advocate.
You can't sit back, these are urgent, these things need to be done, and you have to follow up, you have to build on the momentum, you have to build on the work, you don't have to stop. Our work is not done.
157 countries are state parties to the protocol to prevent and suppress trafficking in persons.
Migrants often have very few options, if any, and must migrate in order to survive.
The estimate that I have been using is about 80,000 persons in solitary confinement.
It started as one special procedure over 45 years ago. Today, the UN Human Rights Council now relies on 79 experts addressing 55 human rights issues, helping nations create and uphold laws inspired by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
This declaration is based upon the spiritual fact that man must have freedom in which to develop his full stature and through common effort to raise the level of human dignity.